have done among the many that you described in your testimony. In that context, in your testimony, you identified nutrition as a bedrock of health and one of the primary levers for treating and preventing chronic disease. You also emphasize that it's imperative for our nation's healthcare providers to be equipped to incorporate nutrition into patient care. Securing commitments from more than 50 medical schools to...
When students 100 years from now see clips like this, and then they're told this guy was leading the Health and Human Services Department, people are going to lose their mind. It's going to be like a joke. I have no idea how the fuck people are going to explain this era of history. This like late stage Roman Empire, this decline. I have no idea how people are going to do it.
Provide at least 40 hours of nutrition education is
on par with Nero making his horse a senator. Genuine, like that. It actually is. That does feel like where we're at. Yeah, you know. That was Caligula. Caligula. Okay, so yeah, you're right. That was Caligula. It does feel like that. Genuinely.
An incredible start. I don't think it was very long ago that there was probably very little nutrition taught in medical school. And now we are encouraging that to be a focal point. How does HHS plan to build on this progress by securing additional commitments from medical schools and expanding nutrition education into other key areas such as residency training, medical licensing, and continuing medical education?
Thank you very much, Chairman.
It just keeps going.
I was reminded when the president was speaking of a conversation that I had yesterday with one of the Democratic senators who was questioning me during a hearing, and she was ridiculing President Trump for his math, and she was saying it's mathematically impossible to have a drug drop by 600% cost, which he had claimed. And I said, well, if the drug was $100 and it raised the price to $600, that would be a 600% rise. Well, if it drops from 600 to 100, that's a 600% savings.
How is he related to the Kennedys? Well, it's in a way, it's like a perfect reflection of the duality of nepotism, right? The thing that made the early Kennedys impressive was then back then wealth and power was to an extent something you had to earn. Not to suggest that corruption and impropriety wasn't common back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, but more like the elite used to be elite. And it is true, right? Generally speaking, back in the day, if you went to Ivy or Harvard, or you had like an elite family or whatever, you were a descendant from the fucking Rockefellers or the Rothschilds or, you know, empire magnate barons, politicians. A lot of these people were, I mean, they were treated like little aristocrats, right? Like old European royalty, you know? You give them their tutorship and you teach them how to play the violin when they're young and so on and so forth. And like, I mean, Kennedy was subject to some aggressive pressure when he was young. Kennedy and his older brother, they were both subject to like a lot of really fucked up, like you are going to be the president, okay? His older brother, then he died in the war, like really aggressive stuff. And the problem, I think, is that back then there was some kind of incentive structure for excellence in power. And if you weren't excellent, many times people around you would take you down. And one of the symptoms of old dying empires is that the incentive structures within leadership no longer weed out the weak. It sounds stupid and a little bit Machiavellian, but it's true, right? Like it's you can take it, I guess, like was Julius Caesar an authoritarian? Yeah, absolutely, in many respects. Was he competent? Yes, in many respects he was. The decline of the Roman Empire, as broad of a subject as it is, you know, you do see a tendency, I think, in the long run towards like, well, what correlated with the decline, you know? For the most part, I think, and it was a million things, but one of the big elements was just there stopped being these intense internal pressures towards excellence within the within leadership positions. Aristocracies work the same thing. You need internal pressure because if you don't have it, eventually you grow weak and you're challenged from the outside. More like the fall of the Roman Republic. But you're right. I'm overreaching perhaps a little bit here. But it is a tendency. It is a real pattern. And yeah, right now there is literally no incentive to excellence. I would say that on average, the people in Trump's cabinet are stupider than the average person because they have been subjected to the sort of conceptual head bludgeoning of being ultra wealthy and privileged from day one. There is no pressure on them to be good. They don't care about studying. They don't care about the truth. They don't care about learning. They're bored by the concept of self-improvement. They are given everything they want at all times. There's no pressure. They never wake up and think, I am going to take advantage of my incredible access to these resources and I'm going to make myself excellent. You know? They never do. They do not. The best way to describe it is to look at Charlemagne's empire, what happened with his kids. I mean, you can do this with so many different empires, man. Even like Genghis Khan's kids or whatever. You have at some point a foundry, right? Like a crucible of pressure, external and internal, that makes a leader excellent, right? You have the great men, Genghis Khan, Napoleon, Alexander the Great. What you can take any one of them, right? And usually they have this big ascendancy, and things tend to fall apart after they die or disempowered because they often give power, they give leadership positions to people through patronage, loyalty, favoritism, or, you know, heritage. And these people have not been subject to the same pressures, so they're not as competent, they're not as quick-witted, they're often very greedy and, you know, well, I mean, Napoleon and so on were very greedy people, I guess more like myopically greedy. They don't understand their limits very well. They don't realize how much work it took to bring them to the point they're at right now. Do you think Trump has any idea the level of entitlement, like how far up he stands and how little he deserves it? I don't think he does. It's the nature of failing empires to Epsteinize. Yeah, I think I agree with that. Though I would like I think like Epstein himself was much smarter than like everyone we're looking at right now, you know. In prior eras, someone like Barron Trump would be speaking like 10 languages and he would have books and books of philosophical and scientific writings, but instead he's just a dumb chud. Yeah, I mean, there is an element of truth to that. I think that, and this is and you know, pardon a fella who's been playing a little bit of MGS2 lately, but in a way it kind of speaks to democracy being a pageantry that legitimizes inequality and power through civility and legal norms rather than being a system that actually incentivizes meritocratic rises to power, you know? Because if you had an aristocracy this decaying and corrupt, well, I'm not suggesting anyone engage in illegal or unethical behavior, but I don't think it would last very long. I think that a noble court of this character would collapse or be collapsed very quickly. We all agree? Can we agree that if you took like France 15th century and the nobility, the court of nobility was made up of people like this exclusively, that it would take like no time at all before scheming viziers, advisors, first sons, you know, daughters maybe, before they would be like, or an external empire would just fucking and it would just fall apart like this, you know? Ottoman Empire was like that for a few hundred years, though. I genuinely don't think that there are many historical empires that are as bad as this one in terms of how much the elite have decayed. I think that if at any point the Ottoman Empire was led entirely by people this stupid and myopic, it would have collapsed almost immediately. I think that in retrospect, we look back at their leadership and we go, oh, they were so dumb and corrupt, because usually the real decision-making was happening at an advisor level, you know? Like you have like an emperor or whatever. Just think, how quickly would Rome have fallen if Trump was emperor and his cabinet were the senators? Like, think about this. Think about all the stuff that Trump has done, all the stuff he's said, all the decisions that he's made. Think about it in a world where he's no longer protected by global hegemony and the dollar being the global reserve currency and all of the work that previous administrations have done to cement the power of the presidency. Imagine if he was just the emperor. It'd be like a day. I genuinely think it would be like a day, or he would have been like backstabbed almost immediately, you know? Yo, we're kind of glorifying how things worked in the ancient past. No. It's not that things used to be good. It's not even that things now are worse than they used to be. It's that there is such a removal of internal and external pressure on the US presidency specifically, that we are so powerful and so privileged that you can be unfathomably retarded. And everyone around you can be unfathomably retarded. But America is so strong, like as an institution, at least for now, that you can just float on that. Kind of speaks to the resilience of our system. No, that's exactly the point I made. There are no incentives. There are no pressures. It's just inertia, man. It is true. The fact, yeah, we don't have snap elections or votes of no confidence, so we're even more insulated, I think, in a lot of cases than other Western democracies. I just think that, like, a lot of the stuff that Trump has done as president with regards to his great edicts on tariffs or global conflict, I think that actually would have clapped the empire in a day. Like, it would have taken no time at all. The difference is Trump now can enact a tariff everyone policy, and it gets smoothed over by a system that involves the individual decision-making of millions of people who work it over and try to, like, adjust and compensate, and you have the incredible productivity and efficiency of a post-industrial world and a very streamlined global trade process trying to work it out and make it function in spite. But if you did that move back in the day when, like, one bad decision on grain management led to mass starvation, I think you would just, like, end the republic in no time. A fuck up like the Strait of Hormuz, like bombing Iran or attacking Venezuela or anything like that, if done by someone who wasn't insulated by the presidency, it would just, it's a very safe country. Oh, anyway, the reason I got into all this right now is because this is RFK Jr. explaining Trump's girl math.
President Trump and the Republicans slashed healthcare for millions of families. The president pitched his Trump RX website as the answer for Americans who are worried about healthcare costs. He claims that Trump RX has reduced prices by as much as 600%. 600%, which I think means companies should be paying you to take their drugs. But let's do some real math here. Take one drug, Protonix, a 30-day supply of this heartburn medication, costs $200 on Trump RX, but there is an identical generic version of this pill called pantoprazole. Secretary Kennedy, do you know how much it costs for a 30-day supply of that drug at Costco?
But I would say this, Senator.
Do you know what it costs?
President Trump has a different way of calculating. If there's two ways of calculating percentage. If you have a $600 drug and you reduce it to 10, that's a 600% reduction.
But you know I only have 5 minutes. Do you know what the drug costs at Costco?
I do not.
The drug is $16. At Costco. Trump RX charges
I think the moment that a Roman senator said, you know, Emperor Trump has a different kind of math, I think that, like, solidly about 10,000 square miles of the empire would have just collapsed into revolt instantly. Like, it just somehow they would, a reverberation of psychic incompetence would envelop the globe, and like a quarter of the empire would just catch on fire.
$200 for Protonix, and Costco charges $16. Let's do another one.
The moment the Praetorian Guard comes to disappear you. Yeah, that's the fucked up thing, man. We don't even have Praetorian Guards anymore.
And the president used that mathematical device to illustrate the magnitude of the theft that has been happening against our country and our people, as he said. I was reminded when the president was...
To be fair, we're much softer than our ancestors. If you take a structural functionalist perspective and you assume that the safety that Trump gets to enjoy despite his incredible incompetence, you understand it as a deliberate product of the system, one might get very cynical about democracy, at least liberal democracy, because it does kind of seem like, especially over the past 50 years, and especially after the end of the Cold War, that many of these civil norms and procedures and institutions are working against us, in the sense that we have made politics, which is a very dangerous game. I mean, many millions of people live or die every day based on political decisions. We have made it so, we've neutered it. We have made it so banal and placid and like enforced through procedural norms. We forget that like for all of human history, people have fought and killed and died over whether or not their leader is competent enough to lead the country. Now we don't. Now we're all safe. And look where it got us. I feel like there has to be some kind of incentive structure here for people in power. It's not good. It's not just America either. I mean, it feels like the entire West, people are, remember when we were looking at, in the beginning of the war with Iran, we were looking at like Iranian officials and all of them have like PhDs, and then every American congressman is like a used car salesman with an IQ of 82 and a Christian evangelical. And then you look at like the foreign minister from Iran and he's like, he's like fucking 16 treatises that he's written this year or something. Likewise with China, in the Chinese Communist Party, they do have a much higher standard of educational attainment they demand of their members than we do. Elections were supposed to be the incentive, but look how that turns out. Yeah, it turns out that doesn't really work if the average voter is a fucking idiot. Remember that one statement from the... Yeah. What was the one thing? The blank, which I assume Americans have read? No. It was... Fuck. Wasn't an Iranian official made a Jane Austen reference, and there was a clip of a BBC reporter not getting it? Am I misremembering that? Alexis de Tocqueville. You're correct. That was it. That sounds right. Yeah. All right. Hold on. We got 10 minutes till we're talking to Dylan properly this time. RFK Jr. sounds like a zombie / the empire is dying. Something type shit. Here. From TrueAnon. Only pulling from the best sources. Oh, here's the Jane Austen reference. Yeah.
It's been quite interesting to look at the, I think, unexpected social media game of Iran recently, and the Iranian ambassador to Pakistan has posted on social media to say it's a Pride and Prejudice joke. It's a truth universally acknowledged that a single country in possession of a large civilization will not negotiate under threat and force. This is a substantial Islamic and theological principle I wish the US would have perceived. So it's a kind of play on Jane Austen.
I actually still don't quite get why it's a play on Jane Austen, but I think it's quite convincing. It's a legitimate point.
Yeah, it's the opening line of Pride and Prejudice. A truth universally acknowledged. That's very fair. But they've had these kind of Lego memes on social media as well, where they've been getting almost like kind of, I mean, it's not official Iran accounts, but like outriders to post Lego memes mocking Donald Trump.
Which I've seen some of those, and obviously everyone told me it was a Pride and Prejudice joke this morning. I didn't know. But I thought it was still quite compelling, which I guess harks back to Jane Austen was pretty good at what she did.
I've never read Pride and Prejudice. I did, however, order The Portrait of Dorian Gray because it came up on stream the other day and I realized that I never read it. And it's behind me right now, so, hopefully we'll get to that. I want to get through some of the classics, How's Dracula going? I haven't started it yet, I'm sorry. I've been wanting to, but it's been taking all of my energy to work on my sleep health. And so far, that's been going well. So I am happy, I think, overall with the sort of general arc of my, my self-improvement. Have you read any Oscar Wilde? I don't think. Maybe in school? I don't know. Did you get the uncensored version of Dorian Gray? Uncensored? I got it from the Penguin, from the Classics publisher. I don't know. I assume so?